Welcome to Breaking Barriers for Inclusive Manitoba, where we don't just talk about accessibility and inclusion. We question, we challenge, we reimagine. I'm your host, Simran Bhinder, and today we are going beyond policies and infrastructure. We are diving into lived experiences, the kind that expose both the progress we've made and the barriers we still need to dismantle. Before we begin, a special thank you to you Multicultural for providing this platform, this space, and this opportunity to bring forward conversations that matter. You Multicultural exists to amplify diverse voices, voices that deserve to be heard, not just today, but always. A bit about me. I'm an urban and regional planner, accessibility specialist, and DEI advocate. My work spans across urban design, policy reform, accessibility audits, and inclusive transportation strategies. And if there's one thing I have learned, it's this: accessibility isn't a checkbox, it's a human right. I have witnessed firsthand how our conversations about inclusion often get reduced to minimal compliance, as if a ramp or an elevator is the finish line rather than the starting point. The truth? Accessibility isn't a nice-to-have accommodation. It's a fundamental human right that touches every aspect of how we live, we work, and connect. So what does it mean to truly belong? To move through a city without obstacles, both seen and unseen? To have your independence recognized, your contributions valued, your needs respected, not as accommodations, but as non-negotiables. The words disability, accessibility, and barriers get tossed around in policy discussions. But do they actually mean in everyday life? For many Manitobans, barriers aren't just concrete obstacles. They are embedded in attitudes, systems, and everyday interactions that determine who belongs and who gets left behind. Today, we are bringing these realities into sharp focus with two remarkable advocates whose experiences illuminate the path forward. Vivi, a passionate leader with CNIB who navigates the world as someone who is legally blind, challenging perceptions, and creating change through her advocacy work. And Besant, whose journey as an immigrant who later acquired a disability offers unique insights into the intersecting challenges of mobility, communication, and belonging in Manitoba. But let's be clear, these stories aren't just testimonials. They're blueprints for action. They demand that we think differently, plan differently, and above all, do better. So let's get into it, because inclusion isn't a conversation, it's a commitment. So thank you, Vivi and Besant, for joining us today. I would like to ask about your experience about recreational activities. I would like to know, what do you do for fun? Because I think when it comes to persons with disabilities, we don't really talk about these aspects. So let's dig in. Let's start with Besant. Tell us, what do you do for fun?
Well, I only go to places where there's multi-accessible places, because most of them are not.
Yes.
I go to organizations that are like ILRC or MLPD, what else? Well, there is accessible, like a symphony. I go once in a while. It's called accessible washrooms, and the bathrooms are called accessible. Lower counters, and they have nice hand wash place to reach the towels.
Yeah.
And the soap. And so is the other places like organization MLPD, or ILRC. My work is pretty good. I go to places like this mostly.
That's interesting. You have touched on so many different points. Accessible washrooms. So you go to places that are accessible to
Yes.
be accessed with your wheelchair. So that means wide doors, that means a continuous seamless path where you could navigate easily. Accessible washrooms, because of course if you're going to go to a place for a long time and you're going to stay there, you would need a place where you could relieve yourself in a respectful and dignified manner. But
Yes.
if the washrooms are not accessible, then it is a challenge.
Yes.
And it's not a challenge just for you. I think it's a challenge that we all face, isn't it? Vivi, what about you? What do you do for fun?
I do things that most people would do for fun. I love to go to the theater and concerts and restaurants and shopping. So anything that a sighted person would do, I probably have done it or want to do it.
That is so cool. And I think it's, again, raising awareness to everyone that a person who has a disability, they want and they enjoy the life as any other person does. So about navigating these places, I can understand where Besant was coming from, that, the place needs to be wheelchair accessible. But when it comes to you, when you are going to these places, how are you finding your ways? Do you always go with your guide dog? How does this work?
I don't always go with my guide dog depending on what the event is. For example, if it's going to be a really loud concert, I wouldn't take him just because it would be too much sensory overload for him. But if it's a restaurant or a movie, he would probably come with me. Actually, when I was in training with him, part of our training program at the school where I went to get him is we try to expose them to most things that they would encounter when they're out working. So we did do training days where we did take them to the mall, we took them to stores, we sat with them in restaurants, we did go to the movies. So anything a sighted person could potentially want to do in their recreation time, we trained with the dogs to do that because that's what their purpose is, to support their person to do the things they want to do both at work and at play.
Absolutely. And this gives me even more questions to dig in. Well, okay, let's talk about the etiquettes. So when you go out to these places, sometimes the places might be accessible, but now we are talking about whether the staff, they are trained in dealing with, these practices. What does it mean to have, lower counters? What does it mean to have, tactile indicators or different modes of information that needs to be accessed by different people? What's your experience being like?
I feel that a lot of work could still be done in terms of customer service because I find that many times it's in the moment training. So if I show up to an event without my dog or without a sighted companion who's attending with me, then, a lot of times people don't know how to do sighted guide, which would be helpful. So just, guiding a person without sight loss in the proper way to keep you and that person safe, or even knowing about appropriate seating. So I know some venues in the city accommodate people with sight loss with seats closer to the front, or if I'm with my dog on the aisle, so it's comfortable for him. But I feel that there's still kind of a piece missing in those areas because understandably a lot of people who work at these events are volunteers, so maybe that's just not built into the volunteer training piece yet. They're trained on so many other aspects of the venue and how to assist people, but that piece for me has been and can be missing. And when I'm out to enjoy an event for recreation, I don't necessarily always want to be educating people.
Yes.
In my lived experience in daily life, because I'm there to enjoy the show just the same as somebody else is, and so much of what my primary role is in my position at CNIB is educating and informing the public, so I would like an opportunity to not always have to do that, although I do understand, like, I'm moving through the world as a person who is blind, so I'm never going to entirely get away from that. There are always going to be moments where I have to teach and educate the public, but it would just be nice if the places that I visit would have more experience or implement that type of training, so that my moments of having to do education and training would be fewer rather than greater.
Absolutely. These are great insights, Vivi. And I'm pretty sure that our audience who are going to, be part of these conversations, I think this is going to provide so many great questions and maybe challenge the thoughts of these owners who are owning these restaurants or these places of recreational activities and entertainment to start training, start inducing that training program from the beginning, because you're right. People would not want to go out when they are trying to enjoy and train others or educate others that, this is how things need to be done. Not being disrespectful, but it's their time to just relax and enjoy. This is great. Thank you so much for sharing that.
It's easy for her because she's on a wheelchair. It's harder for me.
Yes.
So, yes, explain. Absolutely, it is. It is. So what's your experience being like when you have gone out for even just having some fun time, or maybe just some casual time spending with friends?
I have to explain everything. Either they have to help me with the wheelchair up the steps to go somewhere, and that tell them how do I want to eat or something. I don't eat that because I have to use the washroom and I can't go. It's very difficult for me, but I still sometimes go out. To other places too.
Yes.
But then I said, if I'm willing to lift my chair and take me in. Yeah.
Absolutely. So you're mentioning so many important topics and issues that a lot of people who do use wheelchair face on daily basis. Suppose if you have found an accessible restaurant that you're mentioning, you are there, but now you are finding it's challenging that they do not have accessible washroom.
Yeah.
Maybe they have an accessible washroom. In my experience, sometimes I've seen that those washrooms are either locked or they're loaded with some of their storage supplies, and there is not enough room for a person to use it.
Maneuver the wheelchair and go.
Yes, exactly. And when you find that you would not have a place, an accessible washroom, then you would hesitate to enjoy your food or drinks like anybody else.
Very difficult for me.
Yeah.
Being in a wheelchair. If I was walking and disabled, would have been much different. But being in a wheelchair is so hard.
And I think you raise a very important point of ableist mentality, the approach. Like, I have heard so many people say, of course I cannot speak from your perspective because I am not living that experience, but I have lived with my father who have had disability, and he has been using mobility aids for, I think, the longest time that I could remember. I have grown up seeing him struggling to find his ways. But this is the important aspect. I never got to really have that privilege or that luxury of spending time with my parents to go out, because my father would rather order food home because he would always say that the place is not accessible or people are staring at me. That attitude, and sometimes people would have these remarks, oh my God, what would have been happened, and his karma, and I don't know, some really irrational thoughts that would come into people's mind. that stop a person from going out and being visible. But I think in Canada, in Manitoba, we have been finding these things more advanced. Things are progressing and are progressive, but still there's a lot of work that needs to be done.
Yeah, they're slow, I find.
Yes, and like you've mentioned, people would come up and lift your wheelchair because there are steps. But where's the dignity in that? Because you're assuming that it's okay for a person to compromise their dignity, but you cannot provide an accessible space. And that's not okay.
No.
What other things that you have been noticing these days? Because I know that in downtown, nowadays people, I mean, these businesses are getting really creative. And this is a question, or maybe I'm asking for your comments and not really, it's a question answer session right now, because I am finding that people are getting creative with accessible recreational activities happening. I don't know how much you follow when it comes to the news, but there have been downtown biz, and there are some other activities happening within downtown where they would have accessible ice skating or snow riding, and there are some other activities that they would introduce. But for a person to actually go there and experience that would be very different than just publicizing it. Are you aware of these new initiatives that are happening within Winnipeg or Manitoba?
Actually, they said it's accessible, but it's not. Maybe part of it might be accessible, but not all of it. If you want to go have a cup of coffee there, or if you want to go to even visit somebody, it's so congested. Things are so congested. It's so hard to maneuver the wheelchair.
Yes, interesting.
It might be accessible to go in and have fun, but not on some other things, you know.
That is amazing.
They say that it's accessible, but actually it's not.
This is an amazing observation. You are basically talking about seamless, accessible activities, which is not there. There are parts of those activities that are accessible and that can be promoted as accessible, but for a person when they go there, things are not seamless. So you're either doing one thing or the other, but you're not doing the whole, you're not enjoying the whole experience.
No.
That's a very crucial point that you have raised. What about you, Vivi?
So, of course, I'm going to come at it from the sight loss perspective, and I know that Blind Sports Manitoba, or Manitoba Blind Sports, offers a variety of programs for recreation for individuals with sight loss. I know an associate from Accessible Sport Network is working on making sport accessible for people with a variety of lived experience. So I believe the way it works is you're paired with a sport mentor. So you find the sport that you want to do, and they will try to find an elite athlete that does that sport to kind of mentor you and guide you. Mm-hmm. So it's not a one-size-fits-all kind of a thing. At CNIB recently in January, we partnered with blind hockey to put on a blind hockey event for youth and anyone who wanted to come try it, actually, at the end of January, to introduce people to skating and blind hockey if they didn't think that that was an option before. And in the arts world, I work with a theater company that not only hires and works with actors with different lived experiences of disability. There's also a division of that theater company called VIEW, Vocal Image Ensemble Winnipeg, whom I consult for, and they do audio description for theatrical performances. And so primarily most of their shows are at Prairie Theatre Exchange. They do some at Manitoba Theatre Centre. They've done the Fringe Festival. They've done Rainbow Stage. So that is making theater accessible for members of the sight loss community. And I know when we talk about holistic recreation and holistic accessibility. Part of that program is when they host described performances at Prairie Theatre Exchange, they have what's called a lobby buddy. So if you arrive at Portage Place and you need assistance navigating up to the theatre, which is on the 3rd floor, I believe you can make arrangements for one of the describers or one of the View staff to come meet you and escort you there to the theatre. And again, after the end of the performance. So that's where the supports are in place from, the start to the finish of your experience.
That is a lot of great activities that are happening. This is great information, and you have been in collaboration, or maybe somehow you are connected with these initiatives that are happening.
Yeah, so I work as an audio description consultant for View. So how that works is they write a script for the performance. So they'll get a video of the performance before it is played before a live audience. They will write a script so that they can weave their audio description into the action of the play. And before they describe it for paying patrons, they will rehearse with me so that I get to listen to what they've written and how the description is going to work and how it's going to be woven into the play, just to see how it works for me as receiving the information and how it works for them in terms of what they've crafted and created and the timing to make sure all of the described moments are landing where they're supposed to land. So essentially I have one of the best jobs in the world because I get paid to go see theater, which I love. And I'm also an actor with Sick and Twisted. So I've appeared in one of their productions with cross-disability actors. And we're in the process of developing another play that will be performing in June of this year.
This is exciting. This is great. And I think this is the best combination. You mentioned that you are enjoying in terms of providing your expertise, but also participating in the same thing. It's coming from your own experience. And I think now this brings up to this another aspect that I would like to talk about is the age and how we feel included according to our age. I can see that, I'm so happy to hear that there are things happening where, Vivi, you are enjoying, and I hope that you're enjoying with your colleagues and your friends of the same age group. But Besant, now I would like to ask, when it comes to your age group, older adults is something that's we keep missing out, but statistics show that our population who are aging is rising, especially in Manitoba, and there are other provinces, pretty much overall in Canada, that's happening. What's your experience like? I know that there are people who talk about isolation, feeling isolated, or cultural festivals that they would like to go and enjoy, but the events or the venues are not accessible. What's your experience like, or when was the last time when you enjoyed with your friends or family members here?
I don't remember.
Yeah.
But each digital is very fast to say at times, and you feel very lonely.
Yeah.
When people just stay with you and talk to you,
Yes.
it's really lonely, or really isolated. You feel. I really do feel very bad. I can enjoy with my friends.
Mm-hmm.
I know the population is getting older. People are more vulnerable, they can enjoy themselves.
Yeah.
And I'm one of them, but we form our own, in the apartment, I go and enjoy some of the get bingo cards and
Yeah.
or go to other places which are accessible and watch movies or pick cars with them. They did. Actually, it's not a fire. You go out, say maybe to a concert hall or
Yeah.
Sometimes I go there even, before going I go washroom and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's difficult, but I do my best to go enjoy myself. Then
Yeah.
I can go. And not stay out too long and come back home. Yeah.
Yeah. The instances and the parts that you are describing, they could be really challenging. And no matter how much I could empathize or try to understand, still, because I'm not living it, it's not easy for me to speak on those terms. And you've mentioned about planning again. So I know that Vivi and I were talking about some of these planning aspects when, we take transportation services. But Besant, when you're talking about planning, going to an event, this is also crucial. You have to think about whether that place is going to have the accessible washroom or not, and if there could be a way to find out that all these venues or places have accessibility measures in place, that would definitely help any person to enjoy properly when they're going out. But planning ahead, using your own washroom before leaving so that you don't get into any trouble or struggle finding an accessible washroom, and you could enjoy at least to the point where you are going to spend that time in that place with your friends as well. Right now, I think when you're describing that you could not even remember when was the last time when you had fun with your friends and family members, it's sad, because that shows that we still have to do so much for places to be inclusive for everyone so that they could spend some time out and enjoy.
I love to enjoy, but I just can't, because of the wheelchair. I even phone sometimes beforehand, going to certain place, there's accessible things.
Mm-hmm.
Get in and the washroom. That's very important to me. Even after the handicrafts, they had to bring me home early because there's no washroom. So I tell them no washrooms sit out, the accessible.
Yes. I'm
So
going
they
to
have to bring me home early.
I'm going to repeat the statement that you just mentioned. You love to enjoy, but you can't.
Yeah.
And then you mentioned because of my wheelchair. This is what most people usually pick, from the conversations. But I think it's not because of your wheelchair. I think it's the environment which is not designed to accommodate your wheelchair.
That's right.
And it's sad that somehow our environment has made us to question us or thinking about our medical limitations become part of our reality, whether we could enjoy or not. So it's sad, and this shows that we have a long way to go in providing inclusive infrastructure, because our older adults, I mean, yourself, you have been contributing to the community, to the economy for the longest time, and even right now at this age, you're still volunteering. I keep repeating this because it's important. It's important to emphasize that you're not.
Things.
Oh, what's that?
They should do better things.
Yeah. I think you have been constantly contributing, but now it's time for the public, and it's time for the government to support those who have been an essential part of the community, proud member who have contributed in so many different aspects possible. If I have to ask you both, one, I think it's not an advice now. I think I would rather say a wish, a request, or maybe something that you inspire on doing, but right now you haven't been able to do that, what would be that wish that you would like to share to our decision makers?
I would like to enjoy more.
Oh my God, that's such a simple and such an adorable request. It's essential for anybody to
I'd
survive.
like to enjoy more and be with my friends. So I won't feel so lonely.
I love it.
Yeah.
It's really nice when you say it, and I think it's also sad. So it's this bittersweet moment for me when you say, I want to enjoy more
Yes,
with
I
my
do.
friends, and I don't want to feel lonely.
Yeah, I lose so many friends because I don't enjoy with them. Don't go out with them. I can't do things with them, so I lose them.
Right. So you have lost so many friends because you could not enjoy or be out with them.
And I think that's very sad.
It is. I agree with you. What about you, Vivi?
My wish would be to have the arts and recreation infrastructure built so that anyone attending any kind of event that they choose doesn't have to explain what their accommodation need is, that that is part of the accessibility experience, so that if I show up with my cane or my dog, someone would be able to say, oh yes, would you like sighted guide, or would you like to follow me? How can I best assist you? And the same thing for Besant, to be able to attend a concert and be shown, like, here is the accessible elevator, the accessible washrooms are on this floor and this floor. How can I best escort you to your seat? What would you need from me at intermission? I would love that to be woven into the recreational experience.
This is, I think, one of the most important things. And I think you touch base on the thing that we started talking about. And then it's a beautiful conclusion remark when we are closing this, because you're basically saying that accessible or asking for accommodation shouldn't be a thing. Like, it's not a checklist that you keep asking certain people, but for others, they could just smoothly transition and enjoy that whole event. But it's basically a right. And people should be trained, places should be inclusive for all, regardless of their ability, their disabilities. It's about making that space inviting for everyone. And I completely agree. I really hope that our wishes get fulfilled, because I think we are still not able to touch base on some of the caretakers and people who are family members who get sometimes limited from enjoying these places and events as well, because they feel sometimes guilty that they don't want to enjoy because their parents or maybe their family members are not enjoying the same way. But having said that, having an inclusive infrastructure, services, providing proper etiquettes and training, that's something that would help all of us. So thank you again, both of you, for your time, your amazing perspectives, and your lived experience, because that's what matters the most. So thank you again for giving your time, for joining us at U Multicultural. And thank you, U Multicultural, for providing this platform, for making these conversations a success, making these conversations possible, and highlighting some of the major concerns that usually gets shadowed by a lot of other events that are happening around. So thank you again. And for our audience, please keep sharing these stories, challenge the status quo, and ask more questions to your neighbors, to your workplaces, and anyone that you see around, that what it really means to be inclusive. Ask yourself, do you know what it means to have inclusive infrastructure and system. Till then, thank you again. Let's keep breaking barriers by asking the right questions and doing the right thing.